membership campaign is going full force.
Full force, full flight. This may be the biggest call to action in the history of CityCast Madison. Admittedly, I don't know the full history. I just got here, but I like what's happening.
I mean, that's fair. Everyone's learning. Not everyone is a Madison historian, but that's part of the podcast. We're trying to get people to know what's going on. And gotta say, we've got people to thank.
We do. We do have so many people to thank. Gerald, Linda, Gordon, Brooke, Mike, Sarah, Gretchen, and John for joining us in this party we're calling Membership Time.
Membership Time. And we've got two more members that we want to point out. One is Dick. He wrote us a fantastic message about why he joined.
Bianca, would you read it for us?
Yes, it would be an honor. This is from Dick. Truthfully, I've been on board from the very start and have spread the news of the podcast via word of mouth and social media to family and friends. The events of the past 8 years have opened my eyes to the importance of civics and our duty to care about our city and our neighbors in a more intentional way. Through human interest stories, local news updates, and investigative deep dives, I see this podcast as a means to connect our citizens more closely with the pulse of Madison. When I heard Bianca mention the option of supporting the podcast financially on this morning's pod with Francesca Hong, I made the leap. Ugh.
That is amazing. That is an amazing letter. And I'm so glad Dick pointed out that episode. And it's amazing how someone who is part of the service industry, she had a restaurant, she may have another restaurant, and it's also involved in Madison politics. And this is the kind of thing I'm seeing with so many people here.
Yes.
So why not also become a member and make it a trifecta? So do your thing, get involved in politics, and become a member of CityCast Madison.
That's perfect. Thank you to all of you who have joined us this past week. If you are not already a member, what say you? Help us make CityCast Madison a Madison institution.
Join us at madison.citycast.fm.
Yes, we want to live long and prosper together, and we love you guys, so help us.
And we will live long and prosper because we got it like that.
Ooh, we got it like that. Today on CityCast Madison. Spring Election Day is just around the corner. It's 1 week from today, on April 2nd. Spring elections mean local races like school board and county board. And this time, you'll also vote on the candidate you want to be nominated for the presidential election in the fall. Do you know what's on your ballot? This year, there's going to be some real turnover on the Dane County board. Our friends over at the Cap Times did an excellent voter guide on what to expect. So we asked local government reporter Allison Garfield to give us an election preview. It's Tuesday, March 26th. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Allison, hello.
Hello.
So spring elections aren't always the hottest ticket. Sometimes there aren't that many candidates for local elections, meaning voters don't have a choice. What's the case this year?
Yeah, spring elections often fly under the radar, especially local races, which are almost always, like every year, there's almost always local races on the ballot, whether it's school board or city council, or as the case this year, we've got a ton of county board elections in terms of local interest. And I think we're going to see a bit of a higher turnout than we would normally see in a spring election because we've got the presidential primary as well. So when there are these like kind of big national or state races on the ballot, that tends to draw more voters, which is great because that means you get more people showing up at the polls and voting in these local races as well. So we've got a lot going on this year. We've got constitutional amendments. We've got the presidential primary. And then we have 10 contested Dane County supervisor races and lots of new names who are running uncontested. A lot of supervisors not running again. So we'll see a big turnover no matter what, but these 10 kind of contested races, I think, are what people get a choice in, and we can talk more about that too.
Yeah, there's going to be a ton of turnover on the Dane County Board. So let's dig into that first. What are the key issues facing the board that the winners will have to tackle and vote on?
Great question. Let's talk just really quickly about what they do, because I think a lot of folks are like, what is a county supervisor? How is that different than, an alderman, an alderperson for the city? And generally they work together a lot, the city and the county, on a lot of big local issues, whether that be like funding for the Madison Public Market. That's like a dually funded project. But okay, so the Dane County Board, though, that is a group of elected officials, and there are 37 of them. So there are 37 districts across the county, and they are the legislative and policy-making body for the county. If you don't know who your supervisor is, there's a very handy tool online that you can search and see if you have a race on the ballot. You can also look up what your ballot looks like at myvote.wi.gov, and you can see if you've got a local race on the ballot.
Yeah, I have to shout out the tool. I was looking at it. It was very fun. It was like playing Guess Who when you click a puzzle piece and you get to see someone's face. It's very intuitive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So that's just a very brief description on what the county board is, who they are. They get to work closely with the county executive, and our current county executive, Joe Parisi, who has been in office for over a decade, is retiring. And so that'll be on the ballot in the fall. Anyways, it just makes these races now all the more important, because we're picking the folks who will work with a new county executive, who are making important decisions on what local services get funded, what projects and developments get approved. And when we're talking about this election and the important issues that are, folks are campaigning on and talking about in this cycle, we get a lot of the kind of same themes that we've had for the past couple of years, mainly affordable housing, huge. A big concern locally in Madison and Dane County. There's a bit of a housing crunch here, if you haven't heard. And a lot of the projects and affordable housing projects go through these local bodies for approval. And so if you are interested in your housing supply, it's good to be asking your local elected officials what they want to do, what they want to see, what they will be approving and not approving of. So that's a big issue that almost everyone I have talked to for these local races is talking about.
Yeah.
Another one that is very common is sustainability and protecting the environment generally. Madison and Dane County is a beautiful place known for a lot of the nature and offerings that happen in the city and county when it comes to parks and biking, and protecting the environment is a big, important subject that candidates love to discuss. And then specifically with the county, there's a lot of conversation going on about the airport specifically.
And PFAS.
Some more PFAS.
Yeah. Chemicals, the forever chemicals.
F-35s, we could talk about those. And then there was kind of this issue of this like joint use contract between the airport and the military and the Air National Guard. And the county had to approve this contract. And that was kind of this contentious issue. And that has been something I have also heard a bit about from a handful of candidates.
So you did this amazing write-up, these little capsules about all the contested races. So folks can dig in and find out who's running and what's going on. Can you dig into some of the contested races for the county board on Tuesday?
Absolutely. So yes, I encourage folks to check out captimes.com. We've got a voter guide about everything that's on the ballot on April 2nd. That is election day. Folks, mark your calendars. There is also a story on our website just digging into these local races, these county races, and there are 10 contested ones. So let's talk about those and break them down a little bit.
Yeah, what are the standouts?
You have the incumbent supervisor, Jay Brower, who is kind of facing off against a recent UW-Madison graduate named Travis Austin. I think that one's just going to be of interest because students who will hopefully tend to be turning out for presidential races. And so they're going to see that on their ballot too. So Jay Brower has served one term on the county board. He's running for a second term. And Brower is running, he says, to champion the issues that matter to working families, like access to affordable housing and food security, and expanding the county's commitment to addressing climate change. And Austin, who again is his opponent, a kind of new face, a younger face, really is campaigning hard around more investment in affordable housing and increasing housing density near campus to, I guess, alleviate the strain caused by an increasing student population we're seeing at UW-Madison. So it's a very student-focused approach, whereas Brower, I think, is a little broader, looking at families as well as students. But I think that's the biggest difference there.
All right, science heads, are you curious about the unknown? Gear up, because it's time for the 2024 UW-Madison Science Expeditions Campus Open House. From April 5th through 7th, go explore the campus-wide extravaganza across 6 campus locations at one of the best research universities in the world. You'll interact with UW researchers, visit science venues, see science spectacular shows, and get hands-on at exploration stations set up from dozens of UW research groups. From the far reaches of our galaxy with astronomy to zoology examining microbes, UW-Madison Science Expeditions has it all. And all events are free and open to the public. So go get your wonder on. Go check out a complete schedule of events at science.wisc.edu.
Shipping can make or break a sale, so optimize how you ship your orders with ShipStation. They make it easy to automate and manage orders no matter how big your business grows. And they might even be able to help reduce shipping and warehouse costs. So optimize and keep up your momentum for growth with ShipStation. Sign up for your free 60-day trial now at ShipStation.com and use the code POD. That's ShipStation.com with the code POD.
And it looks like District 13 has Camp Randall.
Yeah, a little bit into the Monroe area, perhaps. Again, you can look online at that map. But I would say that I guess is going to be a standout race just because of where we see the most turnout, which a lot happens to be in that downtown area where it's heavily populated, as opposed to you got races all the way out to the northeast edge of the county, Dane County and District 20, which covers the towns of Bristol and York and the villages of Marshall and Windsor. And the county board's most conservative member, Jeff Wigand, is up for re-election, and he's being challenged by Andrea Andrews. Wigand, again, who is, I would say, a more conservative board member on this body that is pretty heavily liberal and democratic in just the policies that it passes. I've heard other supervisors say that the ratio is 34-3 in terms of Dems versus Republicans. And even though it's a nonpartisan elected body, you just tend to notice the trends of how people vote and what issues they are prioritizing. So Wigand, who has supported more conservative policies in the past, he has served on the board since 2021 and is campaigning on his experience standing up for rural Dane County and hopes to see the board get back to basics, is what he told the Cap Times. Wants to see more investment in public safety and transportation infrastructure. He was up for re-election a couple years ago and won very narrowly by something like 40 votes because he was being opposed by a ghost candidate We're not seeing this kind of phenomenon with ghost candidates that we saw a couple years ago, which for those unfamiliar is candidates who kind of appear, show up on the ballot and then don't campaign. They don't really have a campaign presence. Folks aren't really hearing from them. It's usually hard for the media to reach them. It's kind of this interesting thing where folks get the illusion of choice, but often don't. And it can propel other candidates to success because there's not a real choice in opposition to that. But Andrea Andrews served as a Village of Marshall trustee for the past 6 years. And she is a Hispanic woman and is campaigning on her commitment to being a voice for underrepresented communities and wants to ensure that a broad range of voices are heard in local decision making. And doesn't have like a ton, I guess, of priorities that I have seen either on her website or on her Facebook of what she's campaigning on, but did say that she wants to be a voice for transparency and sustainable development. So that'll be an interesting race to watch just because of the nature of those candidates, I think, and their political differences.
And I also saw, the board chair, Patrick Miles.
This is the last one I was going to mention. That is definitely more contentious. It's a more contentious local race than I have seen in recent years. This is going to be an interesting to watch. It's District 34, which covers the towns of Dunn and Blooming Grove and McFarland. And so you've got the county board chair, who is an elected leader of the county board. Patrick Miles has been the county board chair for the past 2 years. He is up for re-election and he is facing off against a candidate named Ed Rett, who served 2 terms on the McFarland Village Board. And so what's interesting about this Patrick Miles, Ed Rett race is a lot of back and forth between these 2 candidates. Ed Rett has called out Miles for some of the stances he's taken on the county board, especially recent ones, and using that in his campaign, which Patrick Miles has called misinformation. He's called it misleading. So we're seeing a lot of tension there. And let's clear up some of that right now. If for folks who are maybe wondering about that, a little confused about that. So Ed Rett, who says he wants to be a supervisor, is campaigning on this, who is in touch with constituent values. And he says that Patrick Miles is not. And what he points to prove this is Patrick Miles's vote in the 2024 budget to cut $1.5 million from area food banks. And this is true. Cap Times wrote about this. I cover the budget. Miles did vote for this. And what Miles is saying, though, is that this is mischaracterizing his record. That is deceiving in a way that is deceiving. Because while he did vote for that cut in the budget deliberations, he did say that Second Harvest Food Pantry still received $4.5 million in that budget. And he did vote to increase support for local pantries, I guess, like 2 weeks after that budget passed. So, you do with that what you will, but...
So they still they before would have gotten 6 million, but they ended up with 4.5.
Yes. So they had been budgeted for 6 million. And if you are familiar with how local budgets work, which there's a ton, you've got 2 city budgets, you've got a county budget. It's different than the state process, right? Which is every 2 years. Every year, the county and the city make decisions about what programs get what funding when. And that funding is often moved around all the time, where bits of money from one project are put towards another. This is how the Madison Public Market was funded. This is how the county jail reconsolidation is funded. Money gets moved around all the time. And so money was reallocated from Second Harvest Food Pantry. I can't remember off the top of my head where it went.
Yeah.
But it's always something usually important that needs funding too. So that money was moved But Miles has supported funding for food pantries prior to the budget he has got a whole list on his website of all the other times he has supported resolutions that increase funding for food pantries. But Rhett is not wrong about what he's saying here. Miles did vote to cut that money from the budget too. So
I guess the voters are going to have to decide what they think about that.
Yeah, you gotta decide, exactly what is important to you. And we have all the stories linked in the Cap Times. You can look back at what that budget deliberation looked like. You can read a really wonderful story by my colleague, Nick Garden, on the state of local food pantries right now, which is pretty dire. They're really underfunded, understaffed, struggling. And so, make sure you're looking at all the information.
Yes. Well, so Dane County is the second largest county in the state after Milwaukee County. What will all this turnover mean for the county?
What turnover generally means in these elections is you get a new group of faces who oftentimes like to challenge what the previous board had already been doing. A lot of times when folks run for these offices, it's because they want to provide some change. They want to shake things up. That's what we saw a couple years ago with the board. It became a whole issue with the county jail project, which was in the process of finding a final form, of figuring out how big it should be, how small it should be. And what happened 2 years ago when new supervisors came in, they said, hey, we didn't vote on what has already been voted on, right? Because we're brand new and we've got thoughts and we want to see some changes.
Dana Pellabaum, she's been a vocal critic of the county jail remodel, and she's running for county exec. So she's stepping down, and that race is still months away, right?
Yes, that won't be on this ballot. That'll be on the November election, the fall election, the presidential election. Local voters will also be voting for a new county executive. County Executive Joe Parisi planned it that way so that when he would be stepping down, the timing would align with the fall election so that you get as much turnout as possible and folks see that on the ballot.
Ooh, this is exciting. There's so much with the Dane County board. So all of that's really fascinating, and we'll definitely link to your story so people can read about the contested races. And I want to ask, is anything spicy happening with the schools? It seems like in Madison, all candidates are running unopposed.
Exactly, yeah. Savion Castro and Maya Pearson, who have already served on the school board, they are on the ballot again. For a 3-year term, and they are running uncontested. So pretty straightforward. They're not facing opponents.
And then there are 2 constitutional amendments that will be on the ballot, which I feel like are going to sneak up on people. Is it possible to share what those are about briefly?
Yes. So there are 2 constitutional amendments on the ballot. You're probably like, what the heck is that? The first one is about if local governments, including Madison, should be barred from accepting private grant funding for election operations. Madison, we've reported, has this private money stored. If voters vote no, though, they can't use it for security, for various kind of election-related purposes. And so that's the first question. The second proposed amendment would require that only officially designated election and poll workers perform tasks in the conduct of primaries, elections, and referendums.
So Allison, thank you so much for filling us in on all of these races and giving us the goods on what the county does, right? Because a lot of people don't know, like you said.
Well, thank you for having me and for caring about local elections. I know it's not always like the most glamorous thing in the world, but it's super important. You can definitely follow along on my Twitter, on the Cap Times Twitter, on our website where we'll be posting those results, usually as they come in, if not just a little bit after. And we'll break down all the information that voters and residents need to know about.
Amazing. Allison, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
That's Allison Garfield, Cap Times local government reporter. If you want to check out their voter guide, head to our show notes for a link. And if you are planning to vote early, remember to mail your ballot in soon. Your ballot has to be received by Election Day, not just postmarked. that's all for today here on CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin. If you enjoyed the show, why not share this episode with your most civically minded friend? We'll be back tomorrow morning with more stories from around the city. Until then, go vote!